Today's the 180th anniversary.
It's December 19th, the 180th anniversary of when A Christmas Carol was published.
What a prestigious, auspicious day it is for us to be recording this. Okay, so we already recorded a podcast discussion about Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, classic novel, beloved by all. And now today we're going to talk about some of the many, many Christmas Carol adaptations that we've seen. We didn't watch them all.
Thankfully, there are so many of them.
There are very
many. Some of them are really good, and some of them are far less good.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, this is going to be pretty straightforward. We're making a tier list, going chronologically. We're going to choose our favorite, we're just going to rank them on the tier list. I think I have 13 here. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
I'm going to get into it. We're starting with 1951, A Christmas Carol, also known as Scrooge. And Alistair Sim stars as Scrooge in this one. This is a classic black and white one. What are your thoughts on this one?
I actually really like this one. As far as one of the old ones, this turned out really good. Alistair Sim's a really good Scrooge.
Yeah, he was good. Full disclosure, I'm going to be totally transparent with you. Both times I sat down to watch this, I fell asleep. But that doesn't speak to the quality of the film. I was just really exhausted. So,
no, this is a good one.
I liked what I saw, which was most of it, but I was in and out. And like you said, Alistair Sim is a good Scrooge. The Marley was pretty good.
Yeah, it stayed very true to the book. There were many lines from it. That's one of the things that I was kind of a big part of how I rated him, is I really liked when it stayed true to the book and didn't just do its own thing.
Yeah, this one is really faithful. It had like some artistic liberty, but not a lot.
Yeah, and the artistic liberty it did was tasteful. So it was good. It wasn't like an added thing that felt unnecessary. It was something that kind of added to it.
Yeah, totally. Way. Like one thing I noticed that jumped out at me was when the Cratchits are mourning Tiny Tim in the future, and instead of reading that passage from Mark that we talked about, they're reading Psalm 90.
Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrows that flieth by day.
And I kind of like that. I don't know if they were doing this on purpose, but it reminded me of the Orthodox tradition of like when somebody has recently died, the first 3 days, people take turns reading the book of Psalms over their body. And I don't think that's what they were doing in the movie, but that's what it made me think of. Anyway, how would you rank this one?
Probably an A. I would put it in A. Yeah. I thought it was good.
I can get along with that. I need to actually watch the whole thing.
It's definitely one of the classics.
I enjoyed what I saw. So, Alistair Sim gets an A. Next one, Mr. Magoo. I hated this.
This was, I think, my least favorite by a lot.
Yeah, this is going on the bottom for me. The music was terrible.
Opening night, flash, 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 I'll be a smash on Broadway.
The music was almost intentionally bad. Like the song that started it off before it even got into it, the Broadway one, I was totally like looking around me like I was being pumped. Like it felt like it was not serious at all, but it was totally serious. And I'm already not a big fan of musicals, so it really just hit every kind of thing that annoyed me. And I also didn't grow up with Mr. Magoo, so
me neither. And Mr. Magoo, he was like singing off key, I think, on purpose.
Yeah. Ringle, when they hingle, make such a lovely sound.
And it was just, and I don't know, I felt like the animation was just really low tier and ugly. And
maybe I was from an older generation and I like grew up and it could fit that like nostalgia tier. You know how like I grew up with like the Muppets one, kind of aware of that, and I'm like, oh, the Muppets, they're cool, but like maybe if I grew up and had Mr. Magoo around, I would have appreciated it more, but I did not really appreciate it.
No, I didn't like it at all. Next is, did you watch this one? Scrooge from 1970.
I don't think I made it all the way through this one.
This was long. And I don't know, I didn't really like it that much. It wasn't terrible. It had really nice sets. I think it's one of the first musical, besides Mr. Magoo, like a huge musical production of the story. A couple songs I remember, but I don't love them. Like the Thank You Very Much song of the guy dancing on Scrooge's coffin was very memorable to me.
Thank you very much. thank you very much, and that's the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me.
But yeah, the set pieces were really nice. I think Albert Finney plays Scrooge, and he was fine. He was kind of goofy. Oh, Alec Guinness plays Marley's ghost, the guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars.
Oh.
And he was fine. They did this crazy, trippy thing at the end where the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come sends Scrooge to hell. And he actually is in like the bowels of hell, and it's all fiery. And then he meets Jacob Marley there, who takes him to his office, which is like this frozen cold place, which I thought was kind of neat, since we talked about like all the like this sort of the Dante and the frozen center of hell in our podcast episode. So that like lined up nicely, but I don't know. I didn't love it. I don't know how much the music adds to the story. I feel like it takes away more than anything. And it takes away like the gravity of most of the dramatic aspects. But I didn't hate it either. I'm just gonna give it this one. I'll give it a C.
All right.
I think that seems fair. Next is the 1971 animated Christmas Carol. This one
is this also the Alistair Sim one?
Yeah, Alistair Sim is the voice of Scrooge in this. Yeah, this was a TV special in 1971. It won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. Alistair Sim reprises his role as Scrooge, and also Michael Hordern, who played Marley's ghost in the 1951 version, comes back for this one. It's 25 minutes long. It's pretty short, but I like this one.
Yeah, actually, of all the animated ones, I like this one a lot.
Yeah, it was really faithful to the story.
Yeah, and especially for being so short.
Yeah.
It was very short. Yeah, 25 minutes or something.
They had to cut out important things to fit into the time slots, but the stuff they kept was really faithful.
Yeah.
It might be one of my favorite like Marley's ghost scenes in anything.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I love the way it's animated.
Well. Yeah.
And I think they used all the dialogue from the book, if I remember right. I think they did the Ghost of Christmas Past really well, even though he came out kind of creepy.
Who and what are you?
I am the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Long past?
No, your past.
Yeah.
But the way, like, it's a really difficult thing to translate from the book, where he's like, he doesn't have like a solid shape. He's constantly transforming.
He's changing all the
time. The way they represented that in the animation was pretty cool.
And this one was almost like a fractal, like the eyes go over. And yeah, it was cool. That was one cool thing about watching a lot of these, is seeing how everyone did the Ghost of Christmas Past differently.
Yeah.
Because if you read the book, it is kind of hard to place exactly what it would look like. So it was really cool to see like 15 different versions of what directors thought it would be.
Right. And the way they represented that here was cool. And this was I think this was the only thing, besides another one we're going to get to, that tried to recreate the part when Scrooge is watching himself reading all the old stories. He's seeing the characters appear in front of him. And I don't think anybody else tried to do that. But yeah, I think this one was really good.
Yeah, I like this one. Where would you put this?
I'm trying to debate between A or B.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I would have been like B+, A-, something like that.
Let's do B+.
Cool.
Really solid. Next one, 1983. Mickey's Christmas Carol. This is the first one I ever saw as a wee lad. And I remember enjoying it a lot. And watching it again, it was nostalgic for me, but it's definitely made for like little kids.
Yeah, it felt like that watching it. I think it was the same kind of thing. It wasn't as nostalgic because I didn't really grow up with it, but I remembered seeing it as a kid. And I think this was the first one I watched when I started watching them. I was like, I'll go in with an easy one. And then I finished it and I was like, well, that was all right.
Yeah, it was all right.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't really good, but I could see how it's for kids for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time Scrooge McDuck is a character.
Yeah, I think the Scrooge McDuck was invented originally for this, and then he went on to do DuckTales, obviously. But I thought it was cute how they casted it with all the different Disney characters, but it was like super simplified. They don't keep a lot of Dickinson's language.
Yeah, they don't.
And it's pretty cutesy. But the animation is actually really beautiful, and it's really well done. I think I would put this above Scrooge, like C plus.
Okay, yeah.
Because I would rather watch this again. I mean, this is short too, but I don't know. I don't love Scrooge, and I don't love this really.
Yeah, there were some parts of it that were just kind of silly, but it makes sense because it was really going for the made for kids.
Yeah, you can't really do a scary Marley's ghost.
Yeah,
and they just, I mean, he's literally Goofy.
Yup.
Yeah, the ghost of Christmas Present is like pretty silly.
Oh yeah,
he would go outside and like he grabs like a lamp post and turns it into a flashlight by like, clicking on the end of it, and I was like, oh, this is really like a kid's thing.
I liked that because the character they used for the Ghost of Christmas Present he was the giant in Mickey and the Beanstalk, which was another one of my childhood favorites. So it was kind of cool seeing him come back. He's not like a character you see a lot.
Yeah.
In the Disney, I don't want to say pantheon, but the Disney universe, which it was kind of cool to go back to a more wholesome Disney.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Less subversive version of Disney. All right, so next, 1984, George C. Scott, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. In my opinion, this is the definitive version.
This is easily the one I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
George C. Scott is a fantastic Scrooge.
He's such a great actor. I know he's really famous for Patton, which I've never seen, but he's in Exorcist 3, and he's great in that. That's how I knew him.
And the creative stuff that they added for this, that's not exactly in the book. I mean, it doesn't, it's like his dialogue with Fred in the beginning, where Fred's like being cheery about Christmas. There's times in which he just starts laughing.
If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Mm-hmm. And I liked it so much. Like his take on Scrooge was so good. Like it seemed so sincere for like a miserly kind of person.
Yeah, and he got both versions of Scrooge down. It's like the challenge for an actor for this role is you have to have the range to pull off miserly Scrooge and then transformed happy good Scrooge, and I think he pulled it off so well. And the entire cast is so good. David Warner as Bob Cratchit.
I loved his dialogue with Cratchit in the beginning where Cratchit wants more coal. He goes into like a little screed about how like we as humans have invented coats and things that are they're more sustainable, and like this kind of thing you're just going to waste a piece to the ground. Like they add the things that are so something that Scrooge would do. Like the whole time I watched this, I was very pleased. This was easily my favorite version, and I would say that in my opinion, this is definitely like the definitive Christmas Carol. It's the 1984 one.
Yeah, I think so too. Frank Finley plays Jacob Marley. He was Van Helsing in the BBC Dracula, and this is probably my favorite Marley scene too, and they pulled it off really well, just with like the dread, and he's actually scary in this. I really liked the guy that played Fred. I recognized him. I was like, how do I know that guy? Roger Rees. And I realized he was the sheriff of Rottingham in Mel Brooks's Robin Hood Men in Tights, and he's great in that too. And yeah, the entire cast was so solid. The way it was filmed, all the ghosts, like the Ghost of Christmas Past is good.
Yeah,
it's fine. The Ghost of Christmas Present is probably the best one.
Yeah.
And the way they filmed the Ghost of Christmas Future, they completely changed like the filming style when he comes on the scene, and I loved like all the artistic camera angles that they chose. What sometimes comes out goofy if you don't film it right, like the giant like hooded figure.
Yeah, totally.
In some of these, he looks pretty dumb.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in this one, they found a way to film it where it's just like this specter that's really chilling.
They did a great job at keeping important lines from the book.
Yeah.
Like they really stayed true to the book, and the things it added, I felt like were totally tastefully added, and it added to the story in a great way.
Yeah, they added his father, who doesn't ever show up in the book, and they give him a little scene talking to his dad, who's this like really cold and kind of cruel guy. And it just adds a little bit more dimension. And yeah, like you said, well put, that it's really tastefully done. And you can tell that they had deep respect for the source material. And yeah, so this one's S tier.
This one's absolute S tier. Best one.
It's the one to beat. And spoilers, I don't think anybody did it.
Yeah.
All right. George C. Scott. Top of the heap. And next, 1988. Scrooged with Bill Murray.
This is one I wanted to like a lot because this is the one I saw as a kid, and even when I sat down to watch it, I was like, I remember kind of liking this as a kid, and then I was disappointed by how much I didn't like it, especially because I had already watched the 1984 one.
Yeah.
By the time I watched this, I was like, wow. I watched it with my wife, and she said that if she didn't know the story of A Christmas Carol, that she wouldn't have got like what this whole movie was going for, because it's so divorced from a lot of like the original Christmas Carol stuff.
Yeah, it is. They try to do this modern update of it where Bill Murray is like a TV exec. He's in charge of this huge cable channel, and he's just a nasty dude.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's the Scrooge from modern day. And but it doesn't really even try to explain why ghosts are coming to haunt him.
Yeah.
They just kind of show up. And I don't think they definitely didn't stick the landing with it. I don't think they ever really earned his transformation.
I don't think so either.
Or anything like that.
This was a good example of one I think that was divorced too much from the source material.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some funny parts, and it was the kind of like, as I watched it, I was like, oh, I kind of remember this. Like, there were some parts that hit me. I was like, oh. But this is one I thought I would like more because it had some of that childhood nostalgia, and it ended up really being one of my least favorites.
Yeah. I mean, Bill Murray's really charismatic in it. The filmmaking is good. It was directed by Richard Donner, who made the 70s Superman and the Lethal Weapon movies. And I was reading that, like, behind the scenes, there was a lot of struggle with what the tone of the movie was going to be. And it seems like a lot of the people that worked on it felt like they didn't really hit the balance. And
I read something about that too. I mean, the music was good. Like, I think Danny Elfman.
Yeah, Danny Elfman. Yeah.
Like, as it started, I was like, "Whoa, it's like a Tim Burton movie. Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there were some parts where I was like, "Is it trying to be scary? Is it trying to be funny?" Like, it was hard to get exactly what it was going for.
Yeah, they didn't hit the tone, and this is like, we'll see this happen again for other modern updates of it. But they just, as soon as they try to de-Christianize it, things just kind of don't cohere at all.
Absolutely.
It like doesn't make sense. Like, why does he? I think the Jacob Marley stand-in, like his old boss, when he shows up, he says something like, "We're going to save you," or something like that. You're going to be saved.
Now, it's too late for me, but it's not for you. You can be saved.
But it's not really clear what that even means.
Yeah, it's it's not coherent. It's just the Christian framework.
You're a mean guy and you're going to be nice now, or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's not really any idea of virtue in this world.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really, I guess that's why the transformation's not really earned. Everything kind of falls flat by the end. There was cute stuff in it, though, like some of the satire of like then modern TV culture.
That was, yeah.
And the way that they're putting on this like stupid live version of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, where Tiny Tim is like a backflipping gymnast girl.
Yeah. That was funny. And they're trying to get all like the celebrity special guests in it, and there were cute things in it, but yeah, it just doesn't come together. And I remember seeing this on TV all the time, and I felt like I hadn't seen it all the way through. But then when I watched it, it was like, oh yeah, I remember all this.
Yeah, same. Like, I didn't remember much of it before watching it, but then certain parts that happened, I was like, oh yeah, this is something I remember.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the cast is really good too. Like, obviously Bill Murray, and then Bobcat Goldthwait is like the employee that gets fired, and his performance was good.
Yeah.
Karen Allen as his love interest was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think so. Bill Murray, I think after this, at some point, I don't know what year Groundhog Day came out, but that feels like a better modern update of the Scrooge story than this ended up being.
That's a really good movie. I ended up really liking
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day is awesome.
Yeah. If you want to watch one or the other, I would choose that one.
Absolutely. This is, I mean, at best it was like a D.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't like this.
I agree.
I was rooting for it. Like, the nostalgia in me was like, this is going to be awesome, but it was not awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Next one, 1992, Muppets Christmas Carol. This was my favorite for a really long time. I loved this one as a kid.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the ones that, as a kid, I saw and kind of was stuck around in the nostalgia part. I mean, where I was like, oh yeah, Muppets Christmas Carol, this is cool.
Yeah, I didn't love it as much this time around.
Same.
I've kind of fallen out of love with the Muppets as a source for entertainment, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still love Michael Caine's performance as Scrooge.
Yeah, I did actually like Michael Caine's pretty much good in everything, but yeah, he was a pretty good Scrooge. Like they did a good job at mixing humans and Muppet characters. It's kind of hard to film that kind of stuff. Some of the filmmaking was pretty good. Some of the songs were memorable. I couldn't tell how much of it was me just having stuff from a kid that I remembered that I was like, oh, I remember this. This is cool.
Yeah. As far as the music goes, I feel like of all the movies that try to add the musical element, might be the best one.
Yeah.
It has some of the better songs, even though I can't even remember how any of them go right now. But, I mean, especially after reading the original novel, like trying to put it in the Muppet style of like the wacky humor and stuff, like at least for me, it doesn't really mix with the rest of the story. But like I said, I love Michael Caine's performance. And there were certain shots of him, like I'm thinking of one of the shots where the Ghost of Christmas Present is singing out in the street and everybody's singing a song with him, but then you just see Scrooge standing and like observing it all, and his like eyes are misting up, and you can see him like really taking everything in, and it's a really nice like subtle performance from Michael Caine.
I thought they were going to take a lot of the Christian stuff out, and they take some of it out, but they left some of it, which I was pretty happy about.
Yeah.
Some of like the notable lines, like when Tiny Tim comes back from church. And he said, he wanted people in church to see him so that everybody could remember who it was that made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Yeah.
And I thought that for sure that was going to be taken out.
Yeah, that was good. One thing is just like as a kid, I had more suspension of disbelief where I like could see the Muppets as almost actors in and of themselves, but when I was watching this, it really was obvious to me that they're just little felt puppets. And that took me out of it.
You see through the Muppets now?
I can see through the illusion now. So that's because for me, like the original story is like so human, and it's weird to see these inanimate puppets standing in for like the Tiny Tim in this is cute and all, but it kind of takes some of the gravity away.
Yeah, I agree.
Having it be this little felt frog instead of like an actual little crippled kid.
Oh, Peter, the Christmas dinner. The goose. The goose.
But it was still pretty good. I think it's higher up. I'd probably give it a B.
Yeah, I'd give it a B.
All right, what do we got next? 1999. Patrick Stewart, Christmas Carol.
This one was pretty good.
I ended up liking this one a lot. Patrick Stewart is a great actor.
He's a great actor, I was going to say that.
And he plays Scrooge pretty well. This was also really faithful to the book, and I think it kept some lines that others didn't. This might be the only one that does the full Ghost of Christmas Present line. And when he throws Scrooge's words back in his face about Tiny Tim, where he's like, if he's going to die, he better do it and decrease the surplus population. And I think this is the only one that did the entire speech after that, which I appreciated a lot. I like seeing that. The guy that played Bob Cratchit was really good. Yeah, Richard E. Grant plays Bob Cratchit.
Yeah, I thought the casting choices in this was pretty good.
Yeah, the cast was good.
But I liked Patrick Stewart's performance. I think you were the one that brought it up, that when Belle is breaking up with him, his like reaction to watching it was a pretty good one. That he's like, "Why go after her? What's going?" It was good to see him like do some creative stuff that worked really well.
Mm-hmm. It was mostly really well made. Like if I'm going to nitpick it, it's a made for TV movie, and you can tell that it's made for TV. It's like pretty low budget. The Marley scene was good, but there were some awkward things where they tried to add some humor in it where it didn't work, and it being like a low budget made for TV movie, the camera angles are just totally static and like really up close, and it wasn't really very artfully filmed, which takes points off it for me. But like, and it's same with like the Ghost of Christmas Future. I thought it looked stupid.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That wasn't filmed very well, but those are kind of nitpicks because mostly I really like this.
And for it being like a made-for-TV thing, like you got to give it some credit,
Yeah.
I'm sure it had much lower budget than the high budget stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and the low budget, it made it work. And I think I might give this an A-.
Yeah, that's a good place.
Like under Alistair Sim. But it deserves to be closer to the top because I thought
it was good.
A good adaptation, faithful one. Because that's what we're looking for. We want that faithful adaptation. Because the original book is just almost perfect.
Yeah, it's so good.
You didn't see this one, did you?
I did not see this one.
2004.
The fact that it was a musical and Kelsey Grammer was in it, I did not see this one.
Something that occurred to me while I was watching it is this almost feels like this could have been the production of Scrooge that Bill Murray was making in the movie.
Charles Dickens' immortal Christmas classic, Scrooge.
See the lamps are glowing.
For God's sake, child, shut up and let me pass.
It's so goofy. Like, it has... The songs are kind of good. They're written by... I think Alan Menken is the songwriter. He wrote a bunch of... He wrote the songs for, like, Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. And, like, he's a pretty big, like, musical composer. And it plays out like it's a Broadway stage play. And they're singing songs. And, like, it's not... It some of it's, like, not bad, but then it gets really corny. And... it's really hard to take seriously.
How was Kelsey Grammer?
Kelsey Grammer was pretty good as Scrooge. I like Kelsey Grammer, but I don't know. Like, the whole format of it was just weird. And like I was saying, like when they add musical interludes to the story, I don't know how much it even adds to it. I sort of liked Jacob Marley's song. It's called Link by Link, but it also just kind of undermines the gravity of what's going on. And then the way they stage it, it just gets really goofy. Where like all these other ghosts come out and they look like zombies and they're just doing it's I don't know, it's kind of dumb. It's not good. I'm gonna put it down here. People are all singing in key.
Oh, well, that's good.
And the music is like not horrible to listen to, even though it's not my favorite, so it's above Mr. Magoo for sure, but it's down there.
All right.
So next we got 2009 Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol.
What do you think about this one?
I kind of hate it. I wanted to like it. Before this, he made that movie Polar Express.
I never saw that. I remember reading the book as a kid, though.
I don't know if I ever saw the whole thing either. But he started working with this visual effects company, and somehow they thought that this style of animation was amazing. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's so ugly. I hate the CGI in both of these movies. It's like this weird uncanny valley.
Yeah, it's like trying to be close to humans, but it's not. So yeah, uncanny valley is a good way to put it. Like, it comes off as this weird, like, I would rather have it be a cartoon or a Muppet. Something that kind of ages more gracefully than having like an odd CGI kind of thing.
It looks like a bad PS3 game or something.
I guess one of the plus points is there's parts of it that are pretty close to the book. I like that they kept a lot of the lines, so there was some faithfulness about that.
Yeah,
it was hard not to see Jim Carrey because you can tell that they really did like the mapping.
Yeah.
You know, they like put things on his face or whatever, and they like mapped out his expressions, so it feels like you're kind of looking at like a miserly Jim Carrey.
Yeah, and his performance for me wasn't super convincing. Like, he never really sank into the role. Like, it always felt like it was Jim Carrey doing a voice.
Yeah.
So that took me out of it. But the rest of the cast is really good. But like the CGI kind of ruined it for them too. Like Bob Cratchit is played by Gary Oldman, who also plays Tiny Tim and Jacob Marley.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
And I actually really liked his Jacob Marley performance. His Bob Cratchit was fine, but it's mostly the animation that ruins it for me. The animation and the direction. Colin Firth played Fred, and I like Colin Firth, and I feel like I don't know what happened with his performance, but like he didn't really come off as warm and loving as Fred should. I feel like he kind of got prickly and angry with Mr. Scrooge, or at least it came out that way.
Yeah, this is one that I thought, I mean, I didn't think I would like it, but I'd like Jim Carrey. I'm not sure if you're aware, Jim Carrey kind of had like a weird personal like growth or like rebirth kind of experience where his personality changed a lot in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, didn't his wife died? And
I'm not actually sure what spurred it. I just saw like part of. I know that one of his parents died when he was a kid, and he always tried to. What he said is he always tried to put on like a happy face to make his family laugh.
Yeah.
So like there was part of it, and then I saw these clips of him saying like kind of vague spiritual things, maybe like doing a perennialism or some kind of like something like that.
I remember him saying stuff about like if only everybody in the world could be rich, so they could see that that's not what is fulfilling or something.
Yeah, so I feel like I've seen a lot of clips like that in the last couple years from Jim Carrey. So that having seen those clips, I was like, oh, he was in a Christmas Carol. I was like totally unaware that he was in this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I was, since I thought he had gone through some kind of personal like rebirth thing, that they would be really good. But yeah, I didn't like it as much as I wanted to.
No, and they added. I think when it originally came out, it might have. Yeah, it was in 3D, IMAX 3D. So they did all this weird visual, silly stuff like what we're seeing on the poster, where he's riding around on the candle cap thing.
Yeah,
and just like goofy, like just visual spectacle for the sake of 3D, which doesn't really do much.
Yeah, it doesn't age well.
It doesn't age well. This I don't like.
This one's going down.
It's towards the bottom.
Yeah, it's definitely towards the lower.
I think I'll put it under Scrooged.
Yeah, I would say D for sure.
D, because it's not like all bad. It has stuff going for it. I also like. I think Alan Silvestri's a composer. I like the music a lot.
Yeah, the music was good. It's a good point.
But man, it's that god awful CGI, dude. It's just,
man,
it ruins the whole thing. Whatever potential it had. Okay, next, The Man Who Invented Christmas. So this isn't like a proper Christmas Carol adaptation. This came out in 2017, and it's kind of like a historical fiction biographical picture about Charles Dickens and how he wrote the book A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of this till one of our priests said, like, oh, have you heard of this? Like, when we told him we were going to do this episode, he's like, oh, have you heard of The Man Who Invented Christmas?
Yeah, so we watched this on his recommendation, and I liked this movie more than a lot of these other ones.
Yeah, I would agree.
I thought it was really well made. I liked the way they portrayed Dickens and how they paralleled his coming up with the story with his own kind of Scrooge transformation. And it was just really well done. I like this a lot. Jonathan Pryce plays his deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
Really well. I like Jonathan Pryce as an actor a lot. Dan Stevens plays Dickens. Christopher Plummer plays Scrooge, because I like the way they had, as he was inventing these characters, they start appearing to him, and he's like interacting with them in almost this like hallucinatory schizophrenic way, but they make it work.
Yeah.
They make it really charming.
They do a good job at having him like interact with people, like miserly people. And then they end up saying the lines that he attributes to Scrooge later, like actually in the book.
Yeah, and it goes into like his actual life story of his parents being thrown into the debtor's prison when he was only 12, and then him having to work in this, I don't know exactly what it was, some kind of factory. And so he had to do child labor because his parents had been thrown in jail. And so he has like this deep resentment for his dad that he has to deal with throughout the movie. And he's seeing all these things, and he's obviously a really perceptive guy. So he's like all of these things in his surroundings, he's like taking in and folding them into the story. Like he hears his maid who's reading the kids a bedtime story, this like old Irish legend about fairies and fire spirits and stuff, and that's what inspires him to have this like weird
because
ghost story.
She says that her grandma told her the story that on Christmas Eve or whatever, like the veil between this world and the other world is like the thinnest, so then spirits could show. And that's kind of, you can see where the ideas all started coming to him for the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he goes to his like copyright lawyer, which is another, like, a lot of the stuff is real world stuff, because he was in this copyright lawsuit with Americans who were using his stuff, but then the things transpire in that scene that inspire him to put them in his story, and he runs into like a few different miserly people who say some of Scrooge's lines that he borrows. I don't know how accurate all that stuff is, but I don't know the way
they put it together in a good way, whether it's accurate or not. It kind of makes like a believable like thread of how he would have interacted with people who are like Scrooge,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was just really charming, really well made.
Yeah, it was well made. It was really well made.
I would put this towards the top.
Me too. B+ or A-?
I would say A-. Yeah, I'm gonna put it up in A. I really enjoy this movie. What do we got? Okay, 2019.
Oh, is this the British one?
The BBC FX joint project. Ridley Scott was a producer on this. Tom Hardy was a producer. He was going to be in it, but he wasn't for some reason. Yeah, this came out on the BBC, the dark, gritty, adult retelling of A Christmas Carol. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this one.
Yeah, same. I was the most torn about this one because in a lot of ways, it's very well made.
Yeah.
Like the acting is incredible. I thought the casting was really good. It definitely changes some things from the book.
Oh yeah, it's 3-hour-long episodes, and it's not a family show.
Yeah, that's the thing that got me the most, I think, is that it really has some very adult things in it.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave you feeling super like happy and redemptive. It just
it's not.
It's really like a dark version of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah. So they do what a lot of these modern retellings do, is try to get away from some of the Christian elements in it, even though they can't fully do that. So a lot of the theological and metaphysical assumptions in the show are totally incoherent and confusing. They do some interesting things where you like follow Jacob Marley a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like the journey his spirit goes on has a little bit more backstory. You see him getting put in chains, which I kind of liked, but I kind of didn't, because the whole point of it, his speech, is how he forged those chains with his actions, and he put them on himself with his own free will. And in this one, you see somebody else putting them on him.
Yeah.
And so they have this weird thing where it's like he's in purgatory, but it's not like a Christian purgatory. It's just this vague idea of purgatory.
And he's trying to redeem Scrooge so that he could get out of it.
Yeah, because for some reason, some arbitrary reason, Marley and Scrooge's afterlife, their fates are intertwined. So if he can convince Scrooge to become a better man and achieve some kind of vague redemption, then they'll both be saved or something.
Yeah.
And they keep it kind of mysterious. Like the spirits, that's one of the things that was confusing about the metaphysics of it, because Jacob Marley has all these lines where he says that like the spirits don't care about us, but then they're also trying to help them change at the same time, and it's like it's all that gets confused.
Yeah, I think you put it a weird way. Like a lot of the metaphysics and theology of this is like kind of garbled as it tries to like get rid of the Christian elements to it.
Yeah.
And there were some parts that were inventive and well written. Like I was saying, like the cast is really good.
Guy Pearce is great.
Guy Pearce is a great Scrooge.
And they, the backstory that they give to him is really like heartbreaking. Like they show you like all his childhood trauma. His dad is a really cruel person who instills in him this idea of the human beast and how everybody's out for themselves. And he sees what poverty did to his father, so he's deathly afraid of becoming poor. And that's why he wants to be wealthy.
Yeah.
And you see, like the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him to his time at boarding school, which has a lot of horrible childhood trauma there.
Yeah.
But there is some really heartfelt stuff. There was a lot of stuff I did really like. And when you see all of these damaging things, and then you see what he became after it, and how he and Jacob Marley started taking advantage and preying on other people, buying companies. They owned like all these different like mining companies in all these different places, but they cut corners and their greed
collapses.
Yeah, their greed it had a horrible effect on all the people that were around them, and they took advantage of other people.
They do a good job at showing that, how his kind of greed like really affected people, especially the lower classes, in a way that he was sometimes aware of, sometimes totally unaware of.
Yeah. They had a nice touch where, like the spirit of Jacob Marley in this one, somehow he gets a hold of a horse carriage that conveys him to Scrooge's apartment, and he leaves the horse carriage outside. So when Scrooge gets home, he's like, "Who left this here?" And the horses are outside freezing, and he takes a blanket, puts it over them, and then when he's talking to Jacob's spirit later, he's like, "You put that blanket on those horses. That means there is hope for you." So he has like this. He still has this compassion for at least animals, which was nice. And then, but you learn about all the trauma he went through as a kid, and it's like it comes to a point where it's like, man, I kind of understand how he would have turned into this kind of person. And when he's talking to the Ghost of Christmas Present, and he's trying to defend himself, and he's like, all those things happened to me. I was a broken person. How can I be blamed for the way I treated other people when this is what happened to me? And the Ghost of Christmas Present says, the next spirit is coming, the ghost of the future. Don't try to make any excuses to him, because he doesn't care about any of that. Like, the only thing for you now is to move forward. And I really liked that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, and I like the touch that he helped out the animals. Because,
Yeah.
I feel like people might have known people like this or encountered people who really do have, like, a disdain for humanity and maybe have, like, some Malthusian stuff in them where they're like, there's too many people in the world, but they are very kind to animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of a pattern I've seen in a lot of people. I've even known some people like that who will kind of explicitly be like, humans are the worst, like, we're destroying the planet and everything, but they're like, but animals are good and they're innocent and humans are evil.
Yeah.
So, like, I kind of liked that was the thing they had him do. That was his, like, redeeming thing, or that which Marley saw and was like, you can be redeemed.
Mm-hmm. And they did a good job showing his character of being like this, just this cold, calculated, like, materialistic, amoral kind of person. And the ghosts, like, give him jabs about that are really nicely done. And he does, and you find out that one of the things that I really didn't like, you find out that he I don't know how to word it.
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah. He does a really horrible thing to Mrs. Cratchit.
Yeah.
When she needs his help. And he takes advantage of her helplessness in this really sick way that doesn't get as bad as you think it's going to, but it's still a really damaging thing that he does to her.
I was pretty appalled when this was going on,
yeah,
for sure. But it does a really good job at showing how cold and calculated and kind of amoral and for the sake of, like, science, to see what he could bring, like, a virtuous person in need to do.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's a price on all these things.
Yeah, exactly. And then so she's leaving his apartment after he basically just, like, kind of breaks her will.
Yeah.
And she's obviously completely damaged by it, and on her way out she says, I will pray for you. And at that point I was like, oh, that's nice. But then she goes on this whole thing like, I will summon spirits to come and, like, bring justice to you, and she almost becomes like this witch figure.
Yeah.
And, like, and then it makes, like, all this stuff with the spirits, it's like she was the one that initiated it with her, like, she basically puts a curse on him, and I thought that was weird and bad.
Yeah.
But then and then his redemption, I thought I kind of liked the way they did that too, where he goes through his past, present, and future, and he's been shown his grave. They're in the graveyard, and he's watching the Cratchits mourn Tiny Tim, and then Jacob Marley shows up for one last time, and he's like, do you repent, or something to that effect? And Scrooge says, no, I refuse to change. I refuse to repent, because the future I've been shown for me is what I deserve.
Yeah.
I don't want to change because I don't want to earn anything less or more than what I've been shown.
Than what's coming.
The only thing I want to change is for that child to survive.
Yeah, Tiny Tim.
And then that's
who
the
falls
thing,
through into a lake.
Yeah.
And is drowning.
And that's the thing that's the moment that you realize he has changed.
Yeah.
Because he's taken responsibility for all of his actions. And then he's in the present again, and the future hasn't happened yet. And he gets up and he's running through the streets and he's like, Merry Christmas to everybody. And, like, I don't know. I liked all that stuff. I thought that was all really cool. But in the end, it's just this really dark, gritty, very not family friendly at all.
Yeah, it's really not a family friendly one.
Very metaphysically confused.
Yeah, it's so great because there were parts I really liked, and there were parts of it that made me feel like I was watching Requiem for a Dream for the first time. Where it's like, wow, this is, like, way more intense than I was expecting it to be, and, like, not where I thought this was going.
Yeah.
But it was, in a lot of ways, it was really good.
Yeah.
So I have trouble rating this.
Yeah, a lot of mixed feelings about it. I want to give it a C. I think I would go back and watch this over the two that we put in C.
I actually agree with that. I'd put it at the top of C.
Yeah. So you get a C+. 2019 Dark Christmas Carol. It's got really bad reviews, and I know why.
Yeah,
I understand it.
Yeah.
It's not a joyful.
Yeah. It doesn't end and you're feeling good about Christmas, really.
No, but it is well made, and
it is very well
pretty
made.
Thoughtful. We said enough, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I watched this. You didn't watch it. I almost don't even want to talk about this.
Oh, yeah.
It's not bad. It's not good. It's okay. It's 2022's Spirited. It's kind of similar to Scrooge, where it's like a modern retelling of this whole story, but they had this whole thing where the spirits work for like this. I think they describe it as like a cosmic social worker office, and they're in the business of haunting bad people and trying to change them into good people. And this has the same problem that we've been seeing with all these modern retellings, where there is no metaphysical or moral grounding for what they're talking about. So none of it really ends up having very much gravity or making very much sense. There aren't very high stakes, and there's a lot of dumb humor. It's a musical, but it's basically all the same problems that Scrooge had, where it's like it doesn't really earn any of the transformation. It has a weird like reincarnation. This also has a very confused metaphysic. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's kind of silly and dumb. I don't hate it, but I don't really like it very much. I think I like it more than. All right, so I'm just putting it down here, down here in D. It's somewhere over here. Not the worst, but not very good. And it's a sad note to end on, but that's that's what we got. George C. Scott.
That's the one.
Unbeaten.
Yeah, if you've never spent time watching Christmas carols, give the 1984 George C. Scott version a try. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. There is a lot of good stuff here, and this was fun to do.
It was fun. Tier lists are fun.
Tier lists are fun. Happy 180th anniversary to this enduring story. It's actually amazing that all these exist, and that this story was so powerful that even these dumb remakes are coming out.
Yeah.
Like it still captures people's imagination, even though they're so divorced from what makes it good in the first place.
Yeah, it's definitely part of a new Christmas tradition for me to like either read or watch some of these every year.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest Christmas stories. But yeah, that's our tier list. I don't know what else to say.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We'll see you another time.
See you next time.
Bye.
All right. Yes! Oh, good God! Medic! Nurse! Oh, my God!